this one is the Bosch.
The title of this year's report, as you have seen, is The Real Wealth of Nations, Pathways to Human Development. Before I give the floor for the report, I'd like just to quote something from the report itself. It says, in some basic respects, the world today is much better than it was in 1990 or in 1970. Over the past 20 years, many people around the world have experienced dramatic improvements in key aspects of their lives. Overall, they are healthier, more educated and wealthier, and have more power to appoint and hold their leaders accountable than ever before. Witness, for example, the increase in our summary measure of development, the HDI, which combines information on life expectancy, schooling, and income in a simple composite measure. The world's average HDI has increased 18% since 1990 and 41% since 1970, reflecting large aggregate improvements in life expectancy, school enrollment, literacy, and income. But there has also been considerable variability in experience and much volatility, themes to which the report returns to later. From the report itself, it also says the averages can be misleading. Since the 1980s, income inequality has risen in many more countries than it has fallen. For every country where inequality has improved in the past 30 years, in more than 2, it has worsened. And I think this is why the report focuses on inequalities and is very relevant and important. And inequalities are not only in developing countries.
It is indeed a great pleasure also for me to be here today, celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Human Development Report. Human development is much more than HDI, and is much more than the health, education, and income. And also here, this year's report, we wanted to go beyond and look for other dimensions. When we start going for these other dimensions, it becomes a little more difficult, in particular because of data constraints. And there's still a lot to improve in terms of credible and comparable data around the world. But the general conclusion that stands from this analysis is that good things not always come together. What does it mean? That there is no general pattern between the HDI and these indicators that are available out there of broad dimensions of human development. I have here only, or we have here only 2 of those dimensions, empowerment, sustainability, using measures that are out there, obviously measures that have advantage and disadvantage, but they are available and we also use them in our discussion. Human development report always have been pushing the debate on the frontiers of measurement, and this year is not an exception. And we have several innovative measurement proposals this year. A first one is a redefinition of our well-known HDI, Human Development Index, and using and benefiting from all the discussions that along the 20 years have been produced by the academic world and also by the policy makers. We introduced new indicators, or we changed indicators of education and income. This is also obviously possible because now we have better data than 20 years ago. And we also redefined, improved the methodology of normalizing the dimensions and aggregating these new dimensions. So just a wake up, or if you want, a note that is very important whenever we see the HDI and we compare and we want to introduce in our discussion. Due to this change in the methodology, the HDI on this year's report is not comparable with the HDI in the previous year's report. If we want to see how the HDI changed for each of the countries, we should look at this year's report, and on table 2, we have the calculation of HDI for all the years since 1980 with the same consistent methodology and with same consistent indicators. So please don't compare HDI from different reports, use only the data and the time series for the same report. Vielen Dank.
Let me see if I can follow from here, just to share with you some specific observations around this report and how it is seen more from the region which is east of you, the region that goes all the way to Kazakhstan. The first thing that I think we want to see is that the biggest success we have had is now that there is a general acceptance of the human development concept as a development paradigm. And I think that we can see, if you want to stereotype a little bit the old times, we have moved from a classical economist view being that human beings were labor and that development was their average income. And what is that concretely saying? It is because the way you experience poverty or deprivation is different. Most of you will know a country like Belarus or Ukraine. In Belarus and Ukraine, you're not poor in traditional way. But men in Belarus, they live shorter lives. And this means that they have not been able to take traditional money and turn it into something useful. And this is a trend that has been going on. So if you're a Caucasian male in Belarus, Ukraine, or Russia itself, you live shorter and shorter lives. This is why it's important for us to break down what is poverty and maybe talk about deprivation and other ways, so we can, from a policy point of view, intervene. So in short, both at the global level and at the regional level, we as UNDP is trying to get more dimensions into how we understand the situation. And one way you can express it is that we are seeking to understand the real conditions of the human being behind the statistics. But the core message here is that in our region, we want to focus more on inequalities and vulnerabilities. And we need to look at that inside countries that are otherwise doing fine. And if we look there, we can see that there are large pockets of people who live in really poor conditions. And therefore, we also need to emphasize local development a little bit more. We need to maybe go outside the big growth centers, traditional, the big cities or the wealthy provinces, and find areas where people really live under multiple dimensions deprivation and deal with the issue there. What we're advocating on the basis of this Human Development Report and our own research of the region is, in a sense, when we meet governments east of us, and we try to say that the winning formula has three elements. That the countries should strive for high levels of human development now. That means development on all the dimensions. They should at the same time start going and creating real progress in transitioning to a low-carbon economy. And finally, they should adopt meaningfully to the climate change that is happening. We would like to put that under the heading of sustainable human development. And we think that this is what, in a sense, we should spend the next 20 years focusing on, exactly how we can get the human development made sustainable and make sure that each country and each region is lifted up in that understanding. The development, which is us, we need to explain a green future for the 9 billion people that will be with us within the next 20, 30 years. We need to find a way that we can all be here, and we can all be here in a way that is human, but is also not depleting the resources that sits with us. So these are the remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your excellent contribution, and thank you for attending and interactive questions. Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Excellent.